think in the Christian church a lot. Recently, there's been a discussion around consumerism. And my focus is fully on what does the church give me and not what do I have to offer to the church. And I think online church is like we're throwing lighter fluid on that.
Oh,
Right. If you think that the church is just the content or the message, again, that's not what the platform is supposed to be. The church is a people. It's a body.
This is one of the primary ways that God uses to shape us, to sharpen us, and to turn us into the image of His Son, Jesus. Hello and welcome to the Sunday Huddle. And as always, we're just super grateful to be sponsored by Sports World. They make this possible every week. And as always, super grateful to be joined by Brian. How are we going, Brian?
Super grateful.
Are you really?
Super grateful to be here.
Are you making fun of me?
I'm super and great.
Well, none of those are true.
And
Nathan,
full.
Nathan,
Good meal.
Nathan over here, fix that for us, please.
I am super grateful.
You're doubling down, are you? Good.
I had a youth pastor buddy of mine call me a couple days ago, and we were just talking through a common struggle that I think a lot of youth pastors have of students that are disruptive. Annoying is the wrong word. I wouldn't want to say that online.
I would. They're so annoying.
Disruptive, like when you're teaching and stuff. And he was just asking for some advice, like, hey, how do you handle that if there's students who are like
And
talking?
you say, shut up, stupid.
And
There's a good chance you're not going to heaven.
Exactly. I tell him, I'm going to put you in Brian's small group if you don't stop.
Oh, that shuts him up. Yeah, exactly.
So, so he was asking me for advice on that, and I was just kind of asking him some questions about it, like, hey, tell me about the student. Like, there was one student primarily, but that is disruptive and stuff. And he said, man, the same student has been in the ministry for a long time. He said, actually, back in like a little bit after COVID, we came out in the summers. We were doing some stuff online, and he said it was easy to deal with him at that point because I would just mute him. He said so in the group and stuff like that. Anytime he tried to talk, he was just muted the whole time. And he's like, man, I wish there was like just a mute button there in the in-person stuff. And I agreed. That was my best advice. It's like, okay, maybe you move your whole youth ministry to online now. Actually, we'll just go online exclusive, and you can mute whoever you want.
So growing up, my dad contended there was he never been to medical school, but he thought there was a mute button if I was talking too much or being rude or disrespectful. He believed as a young man, he believed that if he hit me in the backside at the right place, that there was the auditory nerve connected.
Yep.
And if you hit it in just the right location, it would immediately shut me up.
Did it work?
It worked every time. Every single time. So much so that I didn't ever want to do it again. Yeah. Right. But there was something.
My mute button was on the back of my head.
It wasn't really.
You got to hit it kind of hard, but
in different places.
Worked.
Yeah. But this, and that's interesting. That's hilarious simultaneously. With COVID, obviously we have this big move to get everything online and to have even church online, which may have been necessary for at least that season. What's your thoughts initially? I mean, he says that as a joke. What's your thoughts initially on, online church or online discipleship? Or what does that look like to you? What do you think?
My initial thoughts are there's got to be a pretty good reason for you to think that you can partake in the local body when not actually be physically there. So obviously,
so let's talk about good reasons first. I appreciate that. Let's talk about what would be some good ways. We're going to try to be the Brian advocate or the devil's advocate. What would be some good reasons why we should do or have a church online?
So actually, I was visiting a church that my brother-in-law is pastor of, and there was a person who was cancer, chemo, can't be around people like physically, just as we can state. He wants to come to church, but he doesn't want to miss out on the message and stuff like that. So online is basically the only situation that he can do without compromising his health. I think that's about as good of a reason as you can get.
Any other reasons you can think of why it would be good to have online church?
So there's the extreme circumstances, I think, like that. I found an article. Now, I'm going to read this. This is not like, I'm not necessarily endorsing this. Actually, quite the opposite. But this is 8 reasons you should consider online church.
Oh, let's go.
Why you should consider it. And it says the internet does not limit God.
Okay.
That's a shocker. I thought that it did. Right. Go ahead.
You can shine a light into the darkest corners of the internet. Okay. You can.
Good.
And I think there's a level of we would agree with that, and that obviously with our the podcast and stuff like that, we would say, hey, we want to enter that space different than a church. Problems don't wait for the weekend.
Okay.
Yes, I would agree. And this is the one I definitely have some beef with, but being anonymous breaks down walls.
Oh.
Okay.
Genuine relationships can form online. We can go into countries and places where we can't travel.
Okay.
Church online gives us unique outreach opportunities, and then that's kind of the last one on there. I said 8, but the last one is your leaders will grow. But
let's talk about one of them. So it's Yeah, we can. It doesn't. It's not just a Sunday. It can get other days. And then you said you just cited as an aside. We're not church.
Yeah,
we're so overwhelmed by the response for this podcast, but we're not pretending that this is church in any way.
No.
And we would all say, if you're treating it like it is, stop.
Yeah, go find your local body.
Today,
Way more important than listening to us.
today, every pastor at your local church is going to be better than Brian. Every single one of them. Yeah, go find them.
100%. I agree. I think one that was very interesting is about the international walls or something that you're able to. Well, I mean, there's local bodies internationally too. So I don't know that's an interesting one, and also the being anonymous.
Yeah,
that's okay. That seems weird. What do you think the local church is about?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Are you
Anonymous, the anonymous one. Yeah, come on.
So the anonymous one is interesting because I would agree. Like, if you're thinking about, if we say one of the functions, I'm sure we'll get into, of the church is accountability,
right,
and is confession and those things, then I would say yes, that is way easier online. It's way easier to confess things to people online, even if I kind of know them online. But I would say that that's a negative thing then.
Right.
Well, it's easier because it's a cheapened version of it. It's like, I don't know, whenever y'all, for me, whenever I was growing up, it'd be, hey, I really want to, let's go get pizza. And we have pizza at home. But the pizza at home is like the really cheap, like frozen pizza or whatever. Oh, we have this at home. And it's always a cheapened version. I feel like it's the same thing of like,
good analogy.
you can have real like confession and accountability and stuff like that online, and it's easier. Sure. But it's a cheapened version of it.
Right. It's like watching a workout video on YouTube and thinking I probably sweat while watching it, but that's other reasons.
So let's go there. First of all, so a couple positive things. It expands the reach of the gospel. That it does allow us to go places that we couldn't do. I have one that it provides access for the homebound and sick and allows us to do that. However, I think every one of these, the case that you presented is probably the most powerful one, that they can't be around other people. But if they're homebound and sick, and that means that we need to be going to their home.
Right.
And we need to be serving them and praying for them and caring for them. And we do that because we've had relationship with them in the local Bible-believing church.
Right.
And so it's better indeed in person. I think yours maybe that's a positive thing, that indeed we want them to be connected to in some way if they can't be around other people.
Right. Another thing that I do think, at least while starting out, is the non-believer this is their introduction, that going into a church is a little bit more intimidating for them. And so as a believer trying to reach out to a non-believing friend, hey, why don't you watch this sermon? And it starts with there. Obviously, it does not end there, and you should encourage getting into the local body. But if this is a foot in the door to be able to introduce them to the gospel, I think that's another good situation in which an online church is beneficial.
Yeah, I do think so. It's an entry point for seekers. Like,
right.
And who seeks after God? Nobody does. But I'm saying for those people who maybe you've had some conversations with, hey man, you're going through something. I heard this sermon on this particular issue. Right. Man, you really ought to listen to this.
Yeah, I think it's you think of it as it's a tool that can enhance and support the ministry of the church. But it's not the church,
right?
Because there's so many things, and we think about like the things in Acts chapter 2 that make the church the church. Like the things it says, I mean, the word together is there all over the place in Acts chapter 2 of all the things they did together and bearing one another's burdens and all of these things. And those are just things that just simply can't be done online. And the church is so much deeper. I think when we think about online church, it's just like we think about the sermon and the worship. And sure, you can consume that online. I would still argue that is the least ideal way to do it.
Yep.
But the church is so much more than that, right? It's so much more than that. And it's those other things really specifically, like you can't experience those in an online community to its fullest extent. Yes, bearing one another's burdens. I know there's someone listening that's like, well, I totally can. I'm going to message my friend. We're going to talk about it and stuff from online church. Okay.
Right.
And that can provide some solace, I think, but that is different than, man, someone sitting there with you.
Right. I have down that it can, we can have content and allows us to revisit it and to listen to it again.
Right.
I think that's positive. Mm-hmm. Every day when I leave my house, when I go to the gym, I'll put a podcast on.
Right.
And I'm trying to learn it. And there are some podcasts, I mean, not without exaggeration, I've listened to 100 times.
Right.
A 2-hour podcast, one of the ones you sent me. I probably listened to it. Two atheists and agnostic, as I said, which is a great name for a sitcom. But two atheists and one guy, and I've listened to it probably 50 times. And I understand about a third of it, right?
Right.
But because it's so much, but it's neat for me to be able to re-listen to that. But again, this is not what I'm talking about. Is certainly not. It's not church,
right? And I think the most important, valid reason for why you should stay or enjoy an online church is the convenience. I think that that's the most important thing, is that I need to have convenience about approaching the body, that sometimes a 15-minute drive, or there's traffic, or there's parking lot problems, that I just need to have the convenience of watching it online. And so that, as long as we know that's the best idea for an online church, is because it's the most convenient for me, then
man, alarm bells ought to go off. This is if that's doing it, and for some of the reasons you said, it can weaken true community and fellowship,
Right.
and it is easier.
Right.
I had a guy who really was instrumental in discipling me whenever I first started traveling and speaking, and he cautioned me about how the road of traveling is not the real world. Like I'm getting all the benefits of being able to share my faith and none of the accountability or truth. Right. Because you go out there, you're going to different places every week. So you have, we joke about it. You have one suit and one sermon. That's all you need. Right. You don't need any more than that. So you can kind of do the same thing over and over and over. Everybody's nice to you and kind to you, but none of those people know me. Not a single one of those people know me. They think they know you. They've heard an intro. They know this, but they don't know anything about you. And so you get this kind of false idea. We want this another episode. Why do people, these guys who travel all the time, why do they fall? It's because there's never any kind of community. Who in the world, for the guy that's traveling every single week of the year, has no community, no one to tell him the truth? How's that guy ever going to survive? And so I think it does weaken community and fellowship.
Definitely. And I think kind of goes back to what Brian was saying of the convenience aspect of it, is we have talked a lot on this podcast and just in general, I think in the Christian church a lot. Recently, there's been a discussion around consumerism, right? And how we have kind of created this environment that is very seeker-friendly or very like consumer-friendly, to where when it comes to church, like I pick, like, kind of can be nitpicky on the type of styles that I want and stuff like that. And my focus is fully on what does the church give me and not what do I have to offer to the church. And I think online church is like we're throwing lighter fluid on that.
Oh, right? I totally agree.
And hey, myself, during the time whenever I've had to like watch church online for a little bit or something like that, I will be the first one to admit, like, I can't do that. I'm not disciplined enough to actually do that well. Because what was happening? If my phone rings, well, at church, I'm embarrassed and I silence it really quick. I never pull it out of my pocket. If I'm at my house, I probably step out of the room real quick, if that. I'm just sitting there right there, right? Or I'm gonna go get lunch started real quick. I'm still kind of listening from the other room. So I think there's like the lack of discipline there. But the idea of like I can just sit down and I can like hyper consumerism mentality of like, you know what? Forget like one of the local churches even. Some of these other churches do it incredible, and they do an incredible job. I'm going to watch those services, right? In a different country, from across the country. So one element of that is cool, but the other element is like, then man, it is a fully like this low commitment, low investment, low accountability, full on, fully embracing consumerism.
Man, consumerism. Think of it. Let's talk about that. That's boy, haven't we turned into that? And we can compare the stage and the music, and we're nothing but consumers.
Oh yeah, and that's why I know Jeff loves watching Elevation whenever he's traveling. It's his favorite church to consume all the time. I can see it in his face too. He's like, man, it's my favorite.
Think I've seen Elevation.
Oh, okay.
Church, yeah.
So we've obviously. I'm not going to continue that conversation. I'll just move on. Moving on.
I think we would all agree, though, that because I know there's someone listening who maybe they feel like they have found a home in online church or something, and they're saying, "Hey, you're saying all these things, but I'm involved in something, right? But you're telling me there are people, like everyone that steps into a church is like actually getting plugged in and getting engaged." I know they're saying their like cynical mind is saying, I know a lot of people go to church, they talk to no one, they sit there, they hear a sermon, they walk out and go home and have no connection or whatever. So I'm doing the same thing, and I think we would probably agree, they need to not do that. Yeah, well, I would put that in the same camp of you're not getting church. You're not experiencing church to the fullness that it's supposed to be.
Yeah, Grandpappy always said, 2 wrongs don't make a right.
I'm sure he did say that. I love Nathan, your pastor's heart. I truly always do. To think about somebody sitting there and say, wait a minute.
Right.
Hey, man, you're saying, but this is so much better than I used to be.
Right.
And in fact, not only is it better than it used to be for me, I never listen to these kind of things. I'm doing it every Sunday, and maybe I'm in and out and engaged, but there are people in church that are doing worse than this. They're engaged with nobody. They're walking in and walking right out.
Right.
Yeah, and so that's a dangerous, but we're not saying that, again, that's okay in either case. It's not okay.
So I think we need to start with, again, since the consumer convenience consumption mindset that we have. Acts 2 teaches us that day by day, attending in the temple together and breaking bread in their homes, they received their food with glad, generous hearts, praising God and having favor with all the people. And the Lord added to their number day by day those who were being saved. And so the early church was devoted to breaking bread with one another, spending time with one another, adding to their church. And obviously you can't do that from afar, I would say. And so like when you're doing this, you're living life together. You're attending the temple together. You're worshiping together. The body is meant to be done not in isolation, but as one body. And so whenever you're doing that, online church can deliver some great content, some great sermons. I don't want to dispute that. But if you think that the church is just the content or the message, again, that's not what the platform is supposed to be. The church is a people. It's a body. And so whenever we understand that, you're missing that element. And we've talked on that a lot.
Yeah, I think that that's interesting. I had one person I was talking to one time, and I observed it. I was in this big church, and I was getting ready to speak, and we were talking about this kind of online church, and they had these massive screens on the front of it, right? They had these massive screens, and he said, "I want you to watch that. Those of us who are here in person, whenever somebody came up and gave announcements or someone was speaking." We weren't looking at the person; we were looking at the screen.
It's like going to Jerry World.
It is kind of, yeah. And I'm not watching the game. I'm watching the game up there. And
Right.
that game. In fact, that game is better.
Oh, it's bigger.
It's better. But we're saying no. If it's okay to look at the screens, you should look at the screens if that's the only way you
With
can.
your eyes, I'm sure.
The only way you can see it here. But we're saying all the other stuff that surrounds that is still necessary. That we're connected to other people.
Yeah, I got a list of just 5 things, just quickly kind of thinking through why in-person community matters. Because I think that's the heart of why we would say where online church falls short. Lots of reasons, but the biggest I would say is that community element of it. So number 1 is that God uses people to shape other people. He uses people to impact people. So encouragement through correction, through sharpening, and you don't have to think too hard to recognize that's really better done in person.
So hold on,
Right?
and I like that point. I want to talk about this just for a second. So you're saying this is the way God operates.
Yes.
That it's we want to get in His Word and we want to pray, but we're saying no. This is not like a default method for God, where He says, "Hey, if I can't get Him to read my Word or pray," no. This is one of the primary ways that God uses to shape us, to sharpen us, and to turn us into the image of His Son Jesus. It's the primary way that He does that.
Absolutely, and in person. I mean, I know, like you could say, well, Bible times they didn't have the internet. Well, so like we look at like the example of like Paul. He would write letters when he's from afar, but what did he also do? Visited. He would go there to go and help implement some of these things. So that's the first one. The second one is that, and this is biblical, you need to be known and to know others. You need to know other people and be known. Online, it's even easier to hide. Online, I get it. You can have relationships. You can have those connections. But in person, an example would be Sunday morning, Brian walks in. I could probably tell right away before we even have a talk at all, oh man, something's going on with Brian. I'll be able to see in his face, right? Because you're in person, because you're there. So you need to be known, and you need people that know you. The third one I wrote down was that spiritual growth happens in community. Following Jesus is far, far harder alone, and it's meant to be done in community, which requires consistency, vulnerability with one another. The next one I wrote down was that we're called to contribute, not just consume.
Yes.
So and if we think about, like Brian talks a lot about serving on here. Well, serving is a big part of involvement in a church, and I'm sure that someone can find ways to say, oh, you do that in online church, but man,
right.
I don't really see how you kind of make that change. We're called to be serving and investing in and in discipling others, and I think very clearly that is best done in the context of in-person relationships.
And so before you go to the next one, though, and there's an efficiency in that. So when God calls us to serve, it's to serve His body and to love on those that are in the fellowship with us. And simultaneously, it does something in us.
Right.
Because God is efficient. So just as He calls us to be discipled in community, He calls us to serve in community because it blesses our community as we're supposed to. That's the primary thing. But then as a secondary reward for that, we get changed. We get made into the image of His Son.
Right. And as the body, again, in 1 Corinthians 12 and Romans 12, we're talking about how the body has all sorts of different parts and different functions.
Yeah.
And so when you are in the role that God has placed you to do in serving, it is great how, again, you can grow from that, but then you're helping other people grow. There's so much that goes intertwined when your body is working correctly. And so the body thrives, especially whenever, like, man, I don't know, this is kind of a new thing for me. I'm not sure how to necessarily serve. You probably have not tried it the right way, because when you have people that are guiding you, and the cool thing, so we talk about serving, I love serving in the youth. I love serving because I learn so much from the students, but then simultaneously, I love the other leaders that I get to interact with. We just have so much camaraderie, and we're able to dive together on some great scriptural matters. It's so cool, some of the debates that we have and discussions that we have, and it's so much fun that just can't take, unless you want to count debates online, which are always the best.
They are so
charitable.
Like
the in-person aspect, you grow so much deeper in your relationship with them, and that's what God intended it.
Come and to rest there. This is why online church is inferior. Come to your local pastor and say, hey, man, look, you've known me for 6 months now. You've known for a year now. Where would you see my gifts and abilities, being able to serve this church in the greatest way? And if they have a relationship with you, which they should, they're going to be able to direct you. Well, we talked in a recent episode about knowing God's will, or he's going to know, he's going to see you in a way that you don't see yourself, and allow you to use your gifts in such a way, again, that they serve the body.
Yeah, and I think, I do think that you can do an element of that online. I do think you can get to know people well, and enough to where I could say, here's some of this person's strengths. But still, it's a cheapened version. It's a cheapened version of the in-person. The spiritual gifts is one I hadn't thought about. That's a good one. Of the best way to find your spiritual gifts is ask those that are closest to you, that are living life, to be able to call us out in person. We need that.
Before you go to the next one, I was just thinking about how, I don't know how many people have worked online or had Zoom meetings with people all the time. And so with one of the companies I work with, we've got people that are in Austin and Colorado and stuff like that. And so we'll have some meetings. And then whenever we get to have an office party where everyone is together, it's so much better. It's so different whenever you get to see someone in person rather than digitally. And so, and you listener has experienced FaceTiming versus being in the same room with someone. There is a noticeable, tangible difference. And there's a reason for that.
Okay, and I don't want to go too far into this. Okay, so on your Zoom meeting, and maybe it's different because it's a special kind of business one, but how many people have their cameras turned on?
That's kind of a requirement. It's a taboo thing if you don't, because we want to see your face and know that you're actually engaged.
Yeah, and otherwise, have you ever been in meetings? I've been in meetings where, a third, I've been in classes where a third of the class is certainly not, and you're saying, there's no way they're engaged. I can't even see you. There's zero chance. I'm barely able to keep up as this guy's talking, and I'm looking at every word that he says. There's zero chance that they're paying attention.
That's
and
true.
I think that's a pretty good comparison. Yeah,
and it's not just so we can prove that you're doing your job and you're engaged, but it's because it's more engaging face to face. Because it's more engaging.
Yep.
The last one that I wrote down is that the abundant life that God has called us to includes community. When it says in John 10:10 that the thief comes to steal, kill, and destroy, but I have come that you may have life and have it to the full, or have it abundantly. I think Scripture is very clear that abundant life, that a fulfilling life, is experienced with other believers, is experienced in community.
An abundant life is not the accumulation of possessions or wealth. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with having babies and the people that you do life with at the church come and bring food to you.
Right.
And you say, wait a minute, why? Because they know me, and they know, and they know me in community. They know me really. They know my kids. They love my kids. They pray for my kids, and so they meet that. And that's something that's special and different than that can't be done, done online.
100%. Another thing that we haven't touched on, but we have in another episode, is the worship aspect. That when you are engaging in worship with the body, Psalm 122:1 teaches us, I was glad when they said unto me, let us go to the house of the Lord. We're glad to go and do this. And Psalm 95:6, oh, come, let us worship and bow down. Let us kneel before the Lord, our maker. There's something when you are with the body worshiping together. It really is a transcendent moment that you can see just a glimpse of what eternity with God is going to be like, with all of the people singing, worthy is the Lord, holy is the Lord.
We were talking about the mechanics of it last time. Should the lights be up or should the lights be down? And that was kind of what we were talking about. That was the focus of what we were talking about. But it is cool to be in community with other believers. Have you ever been? I'm going to be speaking at a men's event later tonight, and you have 200 men. And they're in there and they're singing praises to God, and then the musicians kind of drop out, and you just hear these voices. There's something that's just it can't be replicated, no matter how great the sound system you have or whatever. You're not going to be able to replicate that. That God wishes for that to be done in community.
Yeah, and I think another aspect of the importance of community in church is when we think about the ordinances. Right, when we think about baptism and we think about communion and stuff, I just don't see how that is appropriately observed in online church. I mean, I understand for if you would say for like a time, like, well, it's not ideal, but maybe we have to do it this way for whatever reason.
Yep.
So if it's, you use an example of like shut-ins or something like that. I know plenty of churches where whenever they're doing communion, they will have ways to deliver the elements to those people. And maybe even, beautiful, cool, have someone go and take it with them even.
Right.
But like just because like that's the extreme or the exception doesn't mean that that's like how we see in Scripture to be observed all the time, right? So when we think about baptism and I think of the Lord's Supper, of the importance of those things to be observed together as the body of Christ, man, again, online just doesn't offer us that.
I won't go off too much on this side. There are certain churches that would say that that if you're baptized in this church and then you go and you move your membership to another church, that you should be rebaptized in that church. I'm going to tell you, as foreign as that sounds to our ears, there was a reason for that.
Sure.
They said, no, you're making an identification with Christ, and we're here with you. The wedding that we have at the local church where all of the people that we love are there, they're supposed to be there because they're observing it, but they're also saying, hey, we're here with you.
Right.
We're going to help. We're going to be walking through this. You invited us because you love us. We love you and we care for you. We're joining with you in this commitment that you're making because we care for you, and we want to be there to walk through these times with you.
Right. And I think as we're kind of wrapping up, I just want to again summarize that there are some instances where online church is
Of course.
appropriate.
Yep.
But you who only engages in online church, I want to challenge you, go to your local body, find a Bible-believing church and get involved with it. For you who actually attends church in a physical sense but isn't engaged, go get engaged. Like you're also cheapening yourself. You're missing out on what God has for your life whenever you're not engaging in that. And then ultimately, it's when you get involved, when you get to see, when you are abiding in the way that God has for your life and the will that he has for you, you're going to get to see God work in such beautiful ways. And so I just want to encourage you, go and do that.
Yeah, go find a local Bible believing church. In fact, Nathan, you can put in the comment section. Maybe we have a place where you find a good church.
Yep.
So maybe you don't live near us, man. You can find a place, find a good place that you can connect. We encourage you, man. I know, and I want to be pastoral just like you for just a second. We're saying that I know it's hard.
Yeah.
It is very hard to walk into some place and guess what? If you walk into some place and you're not greeted and people are glad to see you, and the word is not preached, go somewhere else.
Yep.
Because I promise you that at Grace Point, Jim and Judy Sampler are going to give you a hug.
100%.
And so, but there needs to be that. We can help them indeed find a church if they need to find a church.
Amen. Yeah, and that link will be down in the description. You can go and click that, and it will help you. There'll be a search bar on there where you can go and find a church. So definitely check that out. And while you are there is also a link if you would like to maybe be the winner of some free Sports World merch. Sports World has hooked us up. Our sponsor has hooked us up with some merch that we would love to get into your hands. So you can click that button down there, give us just a tiny bit of information, and you might be one of the lucky winners of some free Sports World merch.
Peace!